27-year-old service technician Alex Cabanero is suing the mother of his child, 26-year-old Lena Teru, for kicking his front door. Alex says Lena was angry he filed a report with Child Protective Services.
This is case number 578 on the calendar in the matter of Cabanero versus Teru.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat.
Mr. Cabanero, Miss Teru was formerly your girlfriend.
Yes.
You have a child together.
Correct.
How old is that child?
7 years old.
A little girl.
Yes.
And you have an order of visitation with the child.
Yes.
You are currently married, I assume, to this lady.
Yes.
And you have 1 or 2 children?
I have 2 children and 1 on the way.
According to your complaint, during a scheduled visitation, you noticed that your daughter had a recurrence of a severe eczema problem that she suffers from.
Yes.
You tried to contact her mother. Her mother had turned off her cell phone. So you contacted the child's grandmother,
Correct.
Miss Teru's mother, and you told her that you were planning on taking the child to the doctor.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you went to work.
That's correct.
Miss Teru became upset that you planned to take the child to the doctor. She came to your home when your wife was at home, and according to you, broke your security door.
Yes.
Ms. Teru says you owe her over $4,000 in child support, so what are you complaining about?
The child support's getting taken out of my check. My check's getting garnished every week.
What is the child support order that you have for your daughter?
It's, I believe it's $400 something a month.
How much is this child support order?
$214.
$214 a month.
Correct. He does have another child, is the reason that they take more than just my amount out. He has another child with a mother that also garnishes wages out of his check.
Is that right?
Yes.
You got a lot of children, Mr. Cabanero. You must be very rich.
With children, yeah.
Those are your riches, sir. But sometimes you have to think with this. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now you can stand up. Your name is Mrs. Cabanero, and you tell me, Mrs. Cabanero, what happened when Miss Teru came to your house?
Lena made arrangements with my mother-in-law for the daughter to come over for the weekend on February 11th. And after dinner, I decided to give her a bath. When I got her ready for her bath, I saw that she had whelps on her from her eczema, and she has sores on her arms, all over her chest, thighs, and both eyes, and it was fully all over her body. And when I did give her a lukewarm bath, she did cry that it did hurt her skin.
How long has your daughter suffered from eczema?
Since she was born, Your Honor, since she was 6 days old.
When was the last time prior to February 11th that the child had seen a physician?
On January 31st.
When had it become so exacerbated to cause concern to the police officer who came and saw the child?
It's always been that way, Your Honor. I have a letter from her doctor.
I'd like to see the letter from her doctor.
I got pictures of it also.
I'd like to see the photographs.
Can I mention that it's hereditary, and my sister also suffers the severe disease as well and has the same exact symptoms, and she's 24 years old, Your Honor.
And that was just recent pictures.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
This letter from the doctor, which you furnished me,
Correct.
says that you told the doctor that Alexa, that's your daughter,
Correct.
was found with her stepsister involved in sexual play.
Correct.
How old is that child?
At that time, she was 2 years old.
And how old was your daughter?
I want to say 5.
So they're baby playing.
Correct.
All right. What I need, because he says that he couldn't get this eczema under control, so we sent you to a dermatologist.
Yes.
Doctor, I'd like to see a report is when you last took the child to see Dr.
I don't have a statement.
Well,
with
when
me.
prior to February 11th had the child seen Dr.
The beginning of January?
This is too serious a condition, madam, to wait 6 weeks.
No, Your Honor, I have several medications that my daughter is on that I use on a typical basis.
Did the police officer who responded that day tell you better take this child immediately to the doctor?
No, she suggested that I take her to the doctor, or she would have, well, yes, actually, yes, you're right, correct. or that she would call an ambulance and have
You're
her take
absolutely right, because the police officer who responded that day viewed this situation as critical enough to say, unless you guarantee me that you're going to take the child immediately to the
She would not
doctor,
release her to
she's
me.
taking the child by ambulance to the hospital.
Correct.
So when did you take the child to the
That same day.
dermatologist?
Oh, I didn't take her to the dermatologist, Your Honor. I took her to the regular doctor because it was a Saturday.
When did you take her to the dermatologist?
She hasn't been, Your Honor.
That's neglect.
I have no medical coverage right now, Your Honor.
I don't care what you have to do to get enough money to take your child to the dermatologist. Your doctor, in a letter that you gave me, madam, from your doctor, the doctor says, this problem is so serious and so intractable that I cannot treat the child.
Correct.
So I referred her to a dermatologist, which you didn't take her to.
He also doesn't provide medical coverage for my daughter, Your Honor.
What
And he had
difference
ordered-
does that make? He said,
Because we're
listen
not-
to me very carefully. I read your answer. Your answer said that you got angry,
Correct.
that he was going to take the child to the doctor.
Correct.
So you went over to pick her up.
I did.
And it would seem to me that on February 11th, since you haven't had the child to the dermatologist since the beginning of January because you have no medical coverage, that if the child's father was prepared to take her to a doctor to look into this situation that was unremitting while in your care, you wouldn't get angry. You would say, thank you.
No.
Thank you. Not, she's mine and I'll take care of it.
Your Honor, I did
Listen
take-
to me. That's what a mother does. A mother does not say, I'm not going to let him because that's my job and he has no right to do that. Mother says, if I don't have medical coverage and my husband doesn't provide enough for me to take the child to the dermatologist, if the child's father's going to do that, let him. That's great just as long as the child gets cared for. So the fact that you went over there and made a fuss over there that day is stupid.
I did take my daughter to the doctor that day. I could not take her to dermatology that day.
The doctor says he can't help her. This is a letter you gave me. The doctor
was the
says
weekend, Your Honor.
I cannot help her. That was a Saturday. Did you take the child to the dermatologist Monday?
No, because my coverage ended.
Is she not following me?
I could not.
Is she not following me?
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Caballero says his child's mother, Lena Teru, damaged his front door by kicking it. Alex also says Lena is neglecting their daughter.
You got bigger problems than a door. I don't know what you're here wasting your time for with a door for $300 that got broken. I would save my energy and my time off from work by pursuing, if you feel as if you could provide the child with a better situation, with pursuing either more liberal rights with regard to this child's medical care or custody of this child if you feel as if you can provide for the child so that a child doesn't have to have these kind of wilts because these two people can't provide the child with appropriate
I'm in the
medical care.
process of doing
Do you
that right now.
understand?
He now provides medical coverage for us, Your Honor.
It's not good enough. I guarantee you that if he was walking around with this on his behind, or you would have gotten yourself to a doctor and had it taken care of.
He actually has it
Guaranteed.
on his knee.
And the fact that this child is 7 years old and has no voice, and you have to be this child's voice, is to me an abomination that you would allow the child to walk around for 6 weeks like this. Now, you want to talk about your door?
Yeah?
How did the door get broken?
When she, after that incident, I had a phone conversation with her stating that she was going to come over and pick up the daughter. I stated to her that her daughter needed to see a physician that day, and then she continued to call me names over the phone, so I hung up on her.
I asked about the door.
This getting to the door.
Get there faster. I'm losing
And
patience with the door when I'm looking at it behind like this. I'm losing patience with everybody.
She came to the house, continued to ring the doorbell. I answered the front door, and we did have a security screen door. She asked for her daughter. I told her no. And she continued to say, I'm going to kick you. I'm going to kill you. As soon as you come out of here, I'm going to get you. And I told her, if she don't get off my property right now, I'm going to call the sheriffs. And as soon as I said that, she started to pull and bang and yank on the security screen door.
You have a
So I
picture
shut
of the door?
I also have a witness that my neighbor that also seen all of it.
Is the witness here?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me see. Where's the witness?
He's in the back.
Okay, let's bring out the witness, please.
You swear to tell the truth in these matters?
Yes.
State your name for the record, please.
Travis Smith.
Mr. Smith, are you a neighbor of these people?
Yes, I am.
All right, I'm going to direct your attention to the 12th of February of 2005. Were you home on that day?
Yes, I was.
Did you witness an altercation between this defendant and the plaintiff's wife?
Yes.
Would you tell me what you observed, please?
I heard a bunch of yelling and screaming.
What did you hear?
I heard, open the door, give me my kid, something to that effect. A lot of profanity.
By whom?
Defendant. At the time, I didn't realize it was actually her that was screaming the profanity. I thought it was the people down the street that were fighting. I came outside, and when I noticed that it was actually coming across the street, I approached her, just trying to figure out what was going on.
What did you say to her?
Basically, I asked, what's going on? Because I'm new to the neighborhood. I want to, I'm trying to learn my neighbors. And
okay, she said, what's going on? And she said,
oh, I'm trying to get my baby. They have my baby, and she won't let me have her. She goes, I have the cops on the way, and I walked her out onto the sidewalk, and I said, well, if the police are on their way, then why don't you stand here, calm down, let the police do their job.
Okay. Is that all you saw?
Pretty much.
Can I mention my side of what he said?
Go ahead.
When he came outside, he asked me, is that Alexis and Alicia fighting again? And I said, no, it's me screaming at her to give me my daughter.
Is that what you said?
No. I didn't even know her name at the time. I didn't even know he had another daughter. That's how new to the street I was.
He might have said Alex and his wife
I
fighting
said, are they
again.
fighting again? I thought it was people down the street.
He had said that they were fighting last weekend, the weekend prior to the February
right?
12th.
No.
She was so upset she doesn't know.
Well,
the only thing she wasn't upset about, the only thing Miss Theroux wasn't upset about was this.
That's...
You owe him the money for the door, madam, $322. Judgment for the plaintiff in that amount. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I just want to get my daughter taken care of, and I just want her to take responsibility for the actions she did.
I think she's jealous, and because that was her first love, and I came in between.
I told her I'd kill her. She didn't give me my daughter. That's right, I did.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Berkheimer versus Dukes. Step forward, please.
20-year-old student Sherry Berkheimer is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old air conditioning maintenance man Destin Dukes, for money loaned to make improvements on his house. Destin claims Sherry lived with him, expense-free, for 3 years.
Ms. Berkheimer, according to your complaint, you and the defendant lived together for a period of time. You were involved in a relationship. And sometime about a year ago, you gave him money to help him remodel his house. It was a loan, according to you, to buy materials, etc. And a couple of months later, he threw you out.
Yes.
You want the money back?
Yes.
Can I see proof of the loan?
I never received proof of the loan, but I have receipts that I have from bank statements that I put into the home, and I have pictures of the home, too.
I don't want to see pictures of the home, madam.
Okay.
I want to see money that you gave him towards the house.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You watch the show?
Yeah, I do. I hand them to you. I'm sorry. Okay. This is all of her paperwork.
Okay.
Sorry.
What is this that you're giving me? This is a...
I have, it's the most recent ones of credit cards and a cash sheet, and I have more receipts, too, of Lowe's, which is receipts.
What are you showing me? Is what you're telling me that you gave him money, or is what you're telling me that you charged certain things on a bank credit card, Home Depot, plumbing, millwork, etc.?
The house was all remodeled, and I bought all the supplies to remodel the home, which is like drywall, paint, stuff you cannot take out of the home, which is like...
So why didn't you just give him money for it?
Because he has bad credit, and I have really good credit, so he referred me to get a couple credit cards, so I would help him out with the credit cards, and he offered...
Were the credit cards in both your names?
No, just in my name.
And you're talking about bills that started 2 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
3.
What?
2 to 3 years ago.
How long did you live together?
I lived there for probably about 2 months, and then after the 2 months, he told me he didn't want anything to do with me.
Prior to that, where did you live?
I lived at my parents' house most of the time because we were always fighting all the time, and we never really got along.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Sherry Berkheimer says ex-boyfriend Destin Dukes owes for the money she spent to make improvements on his house.
Where did she live?
She lived with me for about 2 years, and before that she lived with me at my parents' house for about a year. She never paid a dime of rent, and she lived off me pretty much for free. That was the agreement, that she would...
Just a second. So, let's start with this. You acknowledge that you spent in excess of $5,000 on materials for the house.
No, it wasn't even close to $5,000.
How much?
Maybe $1,500.
No, it's more, sir.
Well, if it is more, it was because of a refrigerator, a stove, and a dishwasher, and
I deducted
that she took all out of the house. The only thing left in the house was French doors and some drywall.
What about plumbing stuff?
Plumbing I pitched in on, too. That's the thing. She had all the receipts.
No, I have, it's just on her credit card, sir.
There's some receipts in there without credit.
528, 537, this is all plumbing.
She did buy a lot of stuff, but I don't believe I owe her because she lived off me for free, ever. Never had a job. It was some settlement money.
Well, you have to explain to me, sir, your agreement is what you're telling me, that she purchased all these things for a house that was in your name, and that when she asked you for this money back, which she did after she left, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Only because she...
Shh. Did she call you and ask you for the money back?
She came to my house.
And she said, what did she say?
She asked for it. She said she wanted some money because I was kicking her out, just because I was breaking up with her because she wouldn't get a job.
No, that's not what she said to you, sir. Listen to me. She didn't say, I want some money because you're kicking me out and I'm not going to get a job, so therefore you have to give me money. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
She came to your house, and what did she say?
She said, I think you owe me money.
And what did you say to her?
I said, I don't owe you no money.
And she said, why don't you owe me any money? And you said? Because
you lived off me for free for 3 years.
And what did she say?
Exactly what she just said. That she didn't live off me for free.
What difference is if you paid the bills?
I paid all the bills and bought her food and everything else.
So, did you have an agreement with her that she was going to pay you back?
No, the agreement was that I would support her and I would pay the bills if she pitched in on the house.
Okay. When did you make that agreement with her?
Before we started working on the house.
How much money did you spend on the remodeling?
Equal amount.
Show me.
I didn't say. She had some of the receipts, and the other receipts I didn't save any of them.
How did you pay for the other things?
Work. Or
cash or credit card?
That's why cash. It wasn't on a credit card. That's why I don't have a receipt.
Now, I'd like you to tell me, you started to make these payments on your credit card 2 years before you separated.
Yes, that's correct, ma'am.
How much did he pay you back?
Zero amount.
Why not?
Because we got into a fight as soon as we broke up, and he told me because...
I know, I'm not asking you as soon as you broke up. You broke up 2 years later. Mm-hmm. You started making payments on things for the house 2 years before you broke up. Mm-hmm. And he made no payments, and yet you continue to charge things on your credit card. And my question to you is why?
Because I thought, we were together for a long time, and I was young and naive at the time. I was young. I was only 17. And I thought, we were going to build a house together, he would start paying for the bills, and like the credit cards and all that, and
What you started to tell me was correct. That you may have been young and naive, mm-hmm. but you paid for these expenses on a house mm-hmm. that you intended at that time in your mind was going to be your joint house at one point. So this was not a loan. You don't make it a loan because you break up. A loan is, here's $5,000 mm-hmm. towards the remodeling of the house. I expect you to pay this back to me whether we become engaged, whether we get married, whether we have 6 children or whatever. This is a loan. Mm-hmm. But when over the course of 2 years you continue to make payments mm-hmm. to remodel a house, expect nothing in return during those 2 years just because you break up. It doesn't mature into an obligation that you can sue on. Mm-hmm. You understand?
Yes.
He took the money from you. There's no question about that, that you paid for things in the house. And I do not believe, Mr. Dukes, that you had an agreement with her, that she was an agreement, a verbal agreement, one that was articulated, that she was making these payments because she lived rent-free.
That's exactly why she was making.
I don't believe that, sir.
Right.
What I do believe is that she anticipated that you would have a life together and that this house that you had purchased and that she was helping remodel was going to be the home that you would eventually live in together.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Good. That's not a loan. That's a dashed dream. But it doesn't make for a lawsuit. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused, you may step out.
She got a settlement, and that's where the money came from that she was buying the stuff with.
I'm making payments on things that I don't even live in anymore.
She was just upset that I left her.
Plaintiff Richard Buck Sr. is suing horticulturist Gordon Westfall for the cost of medical marijuana plants. Richard says Gordon didn't deliver the marijuana as promised.
That's case number 64 on the calendar in the matter of Buck versus Westfall. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
Mr. Buck, in what state do you reside, sir?
Oregon.
I assume it is legal in Oregon, in the state where you reside, for you to enter into a contract in order to provide you with medicinal marijuana.
Yes, ma'am.
Which you say you need because you are ill and you take it for medical reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that you entered into a contract with Mr. Westfall for him to provide you with marijuana, which was prescribed by your doctor for you, and that he breached that contract, did not provide you with the marijuana. You had given him a certain amount of money. Not only do you want that money back, but you want other non-specific damages, because you say that because of his breach, you were not provided with the marijuana, you suffered physically as a result of that, and you want him to pay damages.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, what's the nature of your illness, sir?
I'm paraplegic. I also have stress-related seizures, and I have extreme muscle spasms because of the paralysis.
And for how long have you been under doctor's care, part of which is the use of marijuana?
For a little over a year.
And how often are you supposed to use marijuana?
5 to 6 times a day.
Where did you meet Mr. Westfall?
I met him at a medical cannabis awards that was going on in Portland, Oregon.
When?
In the 22nd of November of last year.
And when did you enter into the agreement with him?
We signed the transfer papers on the 25th, and he started growing the garden for me on the 28th.
Can I see the papers that you signed? What is a transfer agreement?
Giving him the legal right to grow the medicine for me.
It's called a change request form, and what this is a form that illustrates, or it tells people where the cannabis is going to be grown. It's going to be telling who the cannabis is growing it, and he signed this on the 7th of January. Legally,
just a minute,
I cannot grow any medicine until that's signed and given to DHS.
When did you terminate your relationship with him?
March 29th.
So approximately little less than 3 months.
Correct.
According to you, since he signed this agreement. Right? Now, he says he signed it in the end of November.
That's his signature.
Who filled this out? Here?
We filled in 2 of those request forms. The first one that we filled out, Your Honor, he was living at his mother's address, which is not the same address that was there. In January, on the 9th, we moved the garden from his mother's house into his new home that he just moved to.
Okay, the reason I'm asking you that question, Mr. Westfall, the reason I'm asking you that question, Mr. Westfall, is I read your answer very carefully, and your answer said that your agreement was that you would grow this marijuana for him between 4 and 6 months from the day you executed the agreement. And if I believed what you tell me, that this was the date that he signed the agreement, and you couldn't start growing until he signed the agreement, that was less than 3 months.
Correct.
So he is correct that you signed your original agreement sometime in November.
That's right, because we moved. We moved. I moved, and we had to fill out a new caregiver form for the new address. So he is correct.
There was another agreement other than this one.
Yes, he is correct.
Okay, so you started to give him money. How much money did you give him after you signed the original agreement?
$425 over a period of 4 months.
Is that correct, Mr. Westfall?
That's perjury, and that's a flagrant lie.
You just asked me yes or no. That's not correct. Show me a canceled check, sir.
He asked for cash. He didn't want anything in paper. These are the dates and the amounts I wrote in a journal as soon as he left my house. Every payment was made at my house, and my wife was
How much did he give you, Mr. Westfall?
He gave me $50 a month plus $20 on top of that twice, and he said he gave me, my mother, $50 for her electricity.
Look at me.
He gave her $50. He said he gave her $50 on the 4th of January. He paid the 70 plus the 70, and then another 50. $170 is what he paid.
That would be $190.
But I don't know if that other 50 is
that would
there.
That would be $190 so far. He says $420. Okay, and then what happened? Mr. Buck?
On the 27th, I was supposed to have my medicine delivered to me on the 28th of March. On the 27th...
Just a second. Who said so?
The gardener, Gordon. He told me that my crop would be in. The first time it was February, then it was the 18th of March. Then it went from the 18th to the 28th.
Of March?
Of March. Yes. Then come the 27th of March, I called his house to ask him what time he would be coming over on the 28th. He said that he needed another 2 weeks, which is over and over again the same excuse.
Okay.
So I asked him if I could please come out and see the garden, because after 5 months I had not been allowed to see it.
It wasn't 5 months.
4 months.
Right. Don't.
And so he refused to let me. And then that night, about 5.5 hours later, he brought this one plant over to me, and it was nothing like it was supposed to have been. He also brought me this paper to sign that was handwritten by him, suggesting that I asked him to bring the plants to me when I never did. I asked to see the garden. And also with that is a picture of the plant that he did bring me, and there's 2 pictures of a plant that should have been what it looked like at that stage.
Okay, so tell me what happened, Mr. Westfall.
What happens, like I said, we met.
Don't just tell me what happened with his plant.
What happened was...
You started to grow his marijuana sometime in late November, because that's when you signed the original agreement. Okay, now we're in March. We're at the end of March.
So we moved the plants into the new home, went through a shock. My daughter got sick because of the mold that was going through the air, so I had to move those plants into another space on the property.
Now, when did you communicate the fact that because of your own family problems, you had to move the marijuana plant?
Well, it wasn't because I had to move the plants.
Listen to me. When did you communicate?
The 28th. The
28th of what?
The 29th.
Of what month?
March 29th.
Well, when did you actually move the plants, Mr. Westfall?
The plants were already moved 2 months before that.
Just a minute. Did you tell him that you moved the plants that were supposed to be his went into shock?
That was, yes, but that was because of a light problem that we had, unforeseen light problem.
I don't care what your problems are, sir. Do you understand?
Yes.
I'm asking you when you communicated that fact to Mr. Buck. In March?
March.
Or in March? Well, that's wrong, Mr. Westfall.
No, I was in
That's wrong, Mr. Westfall. If, because of your own family problems, your daughter's problems, mold problems, whatever problems, you could not complete your contract in a timely fashion, it was your responsibility as a caregiver to advise Mr. Buck that he couldn't have his contracted for medicine because of your problems. You chose not to do that. That's not fair, sir.
But that isn't right. The reason why we had the delay was on the 29th. I called him and I said we had a lighting problem that put the plants back 4 to 6 weeks.
You had problems with it before. That's what you just told me. Don't try to dance around that.
Not for the flowering plants.
Not for the flowering plants. What are you growing, gardenias, sir?
There's three different stages of growth. There's the propagation stage where you clone and you grow for 21 days or so, and that will get your roots. After that, you grow for 3 months in the vegetative state, which allows it to get tall enough to be put into the flowering state, in which I have a video of the...
I'm not interested.
...of the plant.
You're fast-talking me, sir.
And when
You're fast-talking me.
You cannot have any light on those flowers for the 70 days that you flower them. And there was a lighting problem, and that's what was the problem.
Who caused the lighting problem?
There just was a the timer.
What do you mean?
The timer didn't go off.
Whose fault is that?
It's a timer, the manufacturer, obviously.
No, sir, that's your responsibility. You're supposed to be watching the store.
Every day I go in there.
Well, then it's your responsibility. Mr. Westfall, you do not deny that you had a verbal contract to provide these plants for him.
Correct.
I think that you're doing a lot of fast talking, sir. I don't know what you did with the plants. I don't know if you sold the marijuana to somebody who was paying you more money. I have the foggiest idea what you did. But you breached the verbal agreement to provide him with something that the state of Oregon says that he is permitted to have in order to ameliorate a physical condition. He contracted that you should provide for him, and I find that there is absolutely no excuse for you not providing for it in a timely fashion. Now, how long did it take you, sir, to get the medicinal marijuana that you need?
I haven't gotten any from Gordon at all.
Not from him.
I've had to ask for donations, and there's not always available, so I've had to do that.
You had to ask for donations, so you want your money back.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's all that you're going to get, sir, and I find that you gave him $425, although he says no, but you're certainly not going to get any other damages because you've been provided with it, even though you had to ask for it. as a favor, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $425. That's all.
Why is our excuse when they step out?
$150, he's suing me for $400. He's a liar.
He told me he was doing this for the good karma in his soul, but then turned around to try to charge me over and over and over again for money and then lied about it himself.
He required and made me give him his plants after he yelled and called my pregnant wife names on the phone.
100% of the time it happens just before the medicine is to be delivered, and they're looking at all this money, and that's what the greed is usually what takes people.
I ended up cutting off my relationship with him. I gave him his plants, and that was it.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Freeling versus Reed. Step forward, please.
19-year-old cashier Erin Freeling is suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old landscaper Philip Reed, for disposing of all her belongings and for damaging their apartment. Philip is countersuing, claiming Erin stole his cat.
Miss Freeling, you and Mr. Reed used to live together as boyfriend and girlfriend. You lived in an apartment, is that right?
That's correct.
At some point you had an argument, you left, and you claimed that Mr. Reed disposed of some of your property. And in addition, he damaged the apartment so that you didn't get whatever security deposit back you were supposed to. Mr. Reed says that he didn't cause any more than normal wear and tear in the apartment, and he was forced to dispose of your property because he would abandon the property there, and he had to get the property out because the lease was over. Is that right, sir?
Yes, correct.
Okay. When did you move in together, Miss Freeling?
We had moved in together September of 03.
When did you leave?
July of 04.
Why did you leave?
He got too controlling, started being violent, so I decided to leave. And I had returned a week later to get some personal belongings and my cat. When I returned to get my cat, he had started pushing me back into the apartment. And at that point, I had my mom call 911, and we had the police come over, and they had to take him aside so I could get my personal belongings out of the apartment and my cat. I couldn't get that much stuff that day.
Why not?
Because I had a small car, and I was afraid to return to the apartment because he got very violent when I did go, and I didn't feel that I should have to call the cops every time I want to come over to my apartment.
Go ahead.
When I come back in September of 04, he had left my clothes on the middle of the floor, wet with urine. But I have videotape of all the damages or the stuff that he thrown in the dumpsters.
Approximately, we lived together for a year and a half. We had a loving, caring relationship. About 8 months in the relationship, Mrs. Freeling told me she had feelings for another female. And she left the premises. I didn't hear from her. I called her and I told her if she don't come get her belongings, I'm going to throw them out. She took my cat that my grandmother got for me last Christmas.
Don't interrupt him. Who took care of it?
I did, because she wasn't there most of the time.
Step up. What's your last name?
Reed, Audrey.
Miss Reed, you bought the cat last Christmas?
Yes, I gave it to him as a present.
Miss Freeling, where'd you get the cat from?
I got the cat for Christmas from Philip, and I took care of the cat. I have vet bills.
Can I see the vet bill, please?
This is even his health checkup. Here's his rabies tag. The cat stuff is mailed to my mom's house because she paid for it.
Who took the cat to the vet, Mr. Reed?
Mom did. Erin's mother did.
No, Erin and her mother.
Along with me.
Erin and her mother.
Correct.
Right, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you. You may sit down, Miss Reed. Now, what stuff do you claim he disposed of that belongs to you?
When I had returned to the apartment, found everything gone. This is a list of just the main stuff that I found that was gone.
Why didn't you come before? I don't buy the story that you didn't go before because you were afraid of him because he was violent. You could have gone with the police again. You went with them once. You could have gone with them again and gotten your stuff. Why didn't you go back?
Because I didn't have a vehicle that I could move the dresser.
That's baloney.
Because I didn't feel that I should have to get the law involved to get belongings back.
Well, then that's tough. I'm not dealing with something like a sugar dispenser, $3. Salt and pepper shakers, $5. Small cat bowls, $3. The only thing I have to make a decision today about really is the cat and whose cat it is. Mr. Reed, get over the cat. She took the cat with her. She left a lot of other property behind, but she made sure she took the cat. Where's the cat now?
He's at my house.
All right. And the rest of the stuff that was disposed of, you deal with it. Now, you say that he damaged some property.
We had gotten into an argument. I locked myself in the bathroom. He had damaged the door. When I went back to the apartment, I found tomatoes on the wall.
Do you have a bill from the landlord charging you for cleanup?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see it. Who paid the security deposit?
I paid the security deposit.
That was billed to both of us.
Now I'll see the video.
This is what we found dumpster diving. Here's where he threw most of his stuff. Notice, huh? Pretty good, huh?
There's tomato stains on the carpet.
Spot on the carpet. This is the doorknob that he broke trying to get into the bathroom when I locked myself in the bathroom.
You said she locked herself in the bathroom and you knocked the door. Is that true?
No, I'm not a violent person.
Your Honor,
in any event, that was in January, and you lived with him until July. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And another thing is, she came a week before the lease was even up. Like a week. How come she couldn't confront me and say, hey, I'll pay half of it? Like
I
a couple...
I have no idea. Listen, I'm not
Okay.
Dear Abby.
All right.
I mean, the whole thing is very irritating.
Yeah.
You know, two children playing house, and then things go wrong, and then you annoy the courts by asking them to get involved in who belongs to two placemats and a salt and pepper shaker. If you can't play house like adults, don't play house. Half of $490 is $245, which is left due and owing by each of you to the landlord. The apartment wasn't left in such bad I'm speaking. The apartment wasn't left in such bad condition. The cat belongs to you. Get a judgment for $245. That's all.
You may step out.
He was controlling. He would get violent.
She had feelings for another female, she told me.
I haven't fell in love with another woman.
That is not true.
I just have other preferences.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Butts versus Burns. Step forward, please.
23-year-old car salesman Frank Butts is suing his ex-girlfriend, 21-year-old student Marcella Burns, for an unpaid loan to buy a Pontiac Sunfire. Marcella says the car was a gift.
How old are you, Mr. Butts?
I am 23.
You claim a loan to Miss Burns, who was your girlfriend. Correct. You claim the loan was for $3,000 in order to enable her to purchase a car.
Correct.
You were together at the time. She had $1,000. Her old car sort of went on the fritz, wasn't functioning anymore, and you decided that it would be a good idea for her to have a newer car. She had $1,000. You gave her $3,000. Shortly thereafter, the two of you broke up. You want your $3,000 back.
Correct.
And Miss Burns says that this was not a loan, this was a gift, no strings attached gift, and she can establish that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long were you dating before you were involved in the purchase of this car?
We were dating for approximately the previous 6 months. We started dating around October of 2002.
Was it an exclusive relationship that you had with each other?
Yes.
Were you living together?
Throughout time.
What does
I'd
that
stay at
mean?
her house, she'd stay at my house.
But you each had your own respective places to live?
Correct.
Were you living at home?
Yes.
And what about you, Miss Burns? Were you living at home?
Yes.
So sometimes you would stay over at each other's parents' homes?
Yes.
Right.
How old are you, Miss Burns?
21.
Okay. Tell me when this loan took place and why.
What happened originally is her car pretty much went downhill, had a lot of problems. And she had a daughter at the time. Well, she still has a daughter. But she was borrowing my vehicle. I bought a brand new 2003 Trailblazer, and she was borrowing it to get to and from. It came to a bad inconvenience because I was working in one area of town, she was in another area of town, and, you know, we had an agreement that we need to get her a new vehicle. And what it came down was...
Listen to me. I don't want you to be any more nervous than you have to be, Mr. Butts. All you have to do is tell the truth, and you won't have a problem.
Yes.
So, tell me about the $3,000, sir.
Now, we had previously looked around for purchasing a vehicle. Went through a lot of research, found a vehicle, and went out, checked it out, looked at the vehicle on the lot, saw the options, saw the price. We then, went home, talked about it, on how we might be able to purchase it. We did then go out to the dealership within the couple following days afterwards and sat down with the salesperson and worked out a deal on the vehicle.
Just a second. When you discussed how you were going to be able to afford it,
yes,
I'd like you to tell me your recollection of that conversation, sir.
Sure. Ms. Burns was not working at the time. She had no money. I am always there to help my friends in need, whether...
Don't I don't need your editorial comment, and I don't need you to write a book here, sir. I just need you to tell me what the conversation was at the time. Go ahead.
The conversation was that as soon as she got a job or had money, she would pay me back approximately $200 a month towards the vehicle.
And how much after the vehicle was purchased did the two of you break up?
Within the next 2 months.
Still have the car, Miss Burns?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now tell me your recollection of the events.
We were looking for another car. My mother had used my car to go to work. My mother's car had broken down. And the one day she ended up, it was an old car.
Could we just get to the, could we get to the
so I gave it to
3,000?
her.
Shh, listen to me. Don't talk over me. Could we get to the $3,000, please?
Oh, I can start right there. Okay. Like I said, he had called me and told me that he found this car for $4,000, and before that we were looking just for a car around $1,000. But he said that a car for $1,000 wouldn't be reliable enough. So we went to the dealership and purchased the car. We were sitting at the table with the car salesman, and I had, as he said, $1,000 cash, and he was going to put the other $3,000 on his credit card. While we were at the table, the only thing that he had said to me was, "Do you really like this car?" I said, "Yes, I love the car." And all he said after that was, "The car's yours." We filled out the paperwork, we drove off the lot, we are done.
No, Your Honor. We did have an agreement about the payments. When the time of the breakup came, there were some words exchanged, all due to anger, arguments, anger, due to the breakup. I was very hurt over it. Within the previous couple months after that, we had our contact. We were still friends, still saw each other once in a blue moon, and I'd ask her about the money. Excuses were, you know, let's wait till tax returns. As soon as I get my tax returns, I'll give you a cut of the money. I said, okay, so tax returns came back this April. And I gave her a call and said, you know, how are we looking on the money? And the most recent excuse was, well, I'm going to be going back to school this fall. As soon as I go to school, I'm going to take out a student loan and I'll pay you back your money.
Okay. I read your answer, Ms. Burns, and according to your answer, madam, you say that you have a letter from Mr. Butts indicating in that letter that the car was a gift.
That is correct.
I'd like to see it.
May I add that, as he said, he wrote a letter out of anger. If you read the whole letter, it's by no means out of anger.
Just want to see where he indicates to you that the car was a gift.
It's highlighted.
Well, in this letter, Mr. Butts, you talk about the car as being a gift, sir.
Everything I did write in that letter was due to anger due to the breakup.
No, this isn't due to anger, sir. This wasn't an anger letter. I mean, you signed the letter, I love you always and forever. This was not an anger letter, and you indicate, please consider giving me that third chance before I lose you. This was not an anger letter,
It was all due to emotions. I was
well,
extremely
it may
hurt
be
due to
all
the
to
breakup.
emotion, sir, but what I'm telling you is, I'm going to show you the highlighted portion of the letter. There are lots of talk there about gifts that you purchased for her, and you say, you know...
Your Honor, may I say something?
Who are you?
One of his very good friends / girlfriend now, but
No, I didn't ask you. I didn't tell you to sit down.
Can I just say something really quick?
Sit down. Just read the highlighted portion, sir, and then you can read the whole letter if you like.
I understand what it said there.
It says I bought you a gift.
It
I
was
shouldn't
all-
have tried to buy you.
Your Honor, I wrote this letter due to our breakup, pretty much doing whatever I can to try to get her back. I was deeply in love with her. After the breakup, after I realized we couldn't get together, I'm in a very huge slump because now I have $3,000 that I'm still paying on my credit card that was not originally a gift to her.
So you're suing me because I wouldn't get back to
Mr.
you.
Butts, there's no question in my mind that if the two of you had remained together instead of breaking up, we would not be standing here today. Mr. Butts, I want you to listen to me very carefully, sir. When you put the $3,000 on your credit card, it was not a loan.
Yes, it was.
Well, that's what you say. That's
was
not
all
what I
through.
find. I find it a little amoral of Miss Burns not to... Put your hand down! I find it amoral of Miss Burns, since she broke up with you a couple of months later and she still has this car, for not trying to make you whole and paying you back, because that would have been the right thing to do, but evidently she's not that kind of person.
I did try to give him money at one point in time.
You did?
But it wasn't for the fact that he loaned me money.
No, I understand that. If you intend to do that, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I tried to
Because
help him.
my sense is that Mr. Butts, at his age, doesn't have this kind of money to throw around, but he was in love with you.
Right.
He wanted to make a life with you. He bought this car. He wanted to feel puffed up, so there's no question in my mind that he didn't have a discussion with you about paying back the money, because that's not what a young man who's smitten and in love does. At that moment, he's not talking about, you're going to give me $200 a month and go out and get a job. That doesn't happen. Maybe if you're married 30 years, that might happen, but certainly not when you're together 6 months and all that testosterone is moving around. You got my drift, Mr. Butts?
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you should not give him the money back, because the intention was that you be together forever. And the fact that a couple of months later you broke up with each other, then he's hurt and he feels like a sucker because he's paying off this $3,000 and he doesn't have your companionship and your love and affection anymore. So I think if you were a nice person, what you would do is pay him back. But in court, it was not a loan. Your case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
There was a lot of lying going on in the courtroom.
When you're angry, you don't write something that says it's a gift.
I did write a letter out of emotions.
I was actually going to rip the letter up, but my friend here warned me, because she's known Frank for a long time, and said I better not ever throw it away in case something like this happened. And sure enough, it did.
Love is blind. You can do whatever you can to try to hold everything. You can do whatever you can for a person, and it's not always true what you see.
I don't want to say he was psychotic or anything like that, but he was, I'd say, a little obsessive, that's all.
Just for what it's worth, don't lend anybody money.
All I can say is, serves you right.
Versus Muth. Step forward, please.
18-year-old Beverly Lopez and her boyfriend, 20-year-old waiter George Chantarasaka, are suing George's former lover, 19-year-old tutor Saram Muth, for breaking into their home and stealing property.
Pronounce your last name for me.
Chantarasaka.
Chantarasaka. What's your first name?
George.
George. Do you mind?
No.
According to your complaint, this young lady is George's former girlfriend.
Ex-girlfriend.
Former, that's former.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
And it is your claim that she broke into the apartment that you now share with George.
Yes.
Broke the door to your bedroom, vandalized the room, and took some of your property. Your defense is that it's your apartment, and you have the right to go into your apartment because you're on the lease.
Yes.
And you did take some of her property, but that was a mistake.
Yes, I did.
But that you gave it back to her.
Yes, I did.
When did you break up with George?
We broke up a week before I left, which was about May 24th.
And when did you come back to the apartment on the incident that Miss Lopez is complaining about?
A week after June 11th.
And when did you move into the apartment, Miss Lopez?
I think the last week of May.
And you moved in with George?
Yes.
So now he's your boyfriend?
He's been my boyfriend. We broke up for about a month, and that's when he got with her.
So you went from her to her, back to her, is that right? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
You must have some secret something, George, and if you do, it's got to be a good secret, because I don't see it. Now, you came back June 18th. Tell me why you came into the apartment. What were you looking for?
I came back to the apartment to drop off his wallet because he left it in my cousin's car. And I was there to pick up some of my stuff and take it back to California with me. Little did I know, my door was locked. So out of anger, I broke my door.
The door that you had that you say was locked, is that a door to a bedroom that you had shared with George?
Yes.
So it was George's bedroom as well?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I broke off the doorknob, went in, took my stuff, and I also took her stuff out of anger.
And where did you put them when you took them?
I actually took it with me to California. But then I realized my stupidity, and I brought it back the next day. You're lying.
Just a second. Did you get it back?
No. I didn't get any of my stuff back.
Show me that you brought it back and gave it to her.
I have a witness who can't come in because she's a minor.
Well, then if you have a witness that I can't question, then you have no witness.
You're right. I don't. But I did bring it back. Why would she wait for a month to file a report saying that I stole her stuff? I called you and I told you that I wanted my things
Listen,
back.
Miss Lopez, don't speak to her. Speak to me.
Okay.
Did you get your property back?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Do you have a bill for the replacement of the doorknob?
No, I don't.
No, I don't know.
But this is the doorknob. This is how it looks when she broke it off.
I don't need the doorknob, madam. She says she broke the doorknob. I need what it's going to cost to fix it.
Well, we don't have the bill.
You have a list of items that she took out of your room?
I have a police report.
Well, you originally told the police, madam, that all the stuff that was taken was original value and current value were the same. $900. Why are you suing her now for $4,500?
Because my things are actually worth more than $900 at
You mean
the time.
they increased in value since you filed the police report?
No, I didn't.
Listen to me. If you file a police report and they ask you what the value is and you gave them their original value and the current value, I assume that when you filed that police report you were trying to be as accurate as possible. Is that right?
Yes, but at the time I wasn't really thinking because I was really...
And now you're thinking? Is what you're telling me now you're thinking? Heaven help me. You have no right to take up property and you have no proof that you returned it. I have no idea how much it's going to cost to fix the doorknob because you don't bring me a bill.
And she broke my video camera too.
You have a bill to have it fixed?
No, I don't.
Well, what am I supposed to? I'm not a mind reader.
Your Honor, I did not break his video camera.
I'm not considering the video camera because people have to know that when they come to court, they have to be prepared. They have to be prepared with documents. They have to be prepared with receipts. They have to be prepared.
But
I'm speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They have to be prepared with an estimate of what it's going to cost to fix property if there's an allegation of damage. If you don't have that, the judge isn't going to get it for you. George, you got it?
Yes, yes.
Good. As far as you're concerned, you made this report soon after the incident occurred. You told the police what happened. You told the police what your property was worth. You told them at that time that it was worth $900, which is probably a stretch. Certainly that stretch isn't going to be stretched into $4,500. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $900. That's all.
What is our excuse to step out?
I think they're just angry and jealous.
I don't know what I did.
I had her boyfriend for a month. He doesn't want her anymore. He called my phone and made threats. She's psycho. Of course, she's capable of doing things.
Crazy.
Yes, case number 242 on the calendar in the matter of Hale, Stevens versus Gutierrez. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Mr. Stevens, Ms. Gutierrez and you used to be an item. You were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you are currently attached to Miss Hale.
I'm currently seeing Miss Hale. That is correct.
According to the complaint that I have, the two of you say that Ms. Gutierrez did not accept the breakup well, and she has embarked upon a course of conduct that is harassment. She's vandalized your property. She's repeatedly written notes, spray painted your car, spray painted your house, and you want her to stop this harassment. You have a series of police reports, 7 or 8 of them, over a period of several months. You want $4,000 in damages. Ms. Gutierrez says there is no way that she's responsible for any of the damage that you claim. As a matter of fact, she can prove that to me because she was hospitalized and she had just undergone some major surgery at a time when you claim she was running around spray painting your house. And she is counterclaiming because she says because of your complaints about her to the police, she lost her job. How long were you and Ms. Gutierrez together?
Approximately 26 months.
Did you live together?
No, ma'am.
And when did you stop seeing each other?
We formally broke it off December of 2003. While she was in hospital in January and February, I visited her. It was a life-threatening surgery. During that time, I was very explicit that I didn't want to maintain a relationship as a boyfriend-girlfriend.
You mean right after her surgery?
Correct.
That was in 04, January and February of 04.
Yes.
Okay.
The last time I actually spoke to her about the relationship was probably the earliest part of June.
Well, between January and February and the early part of June, were you together? Did you see each other?
We went on a camping trip in May as friends.
How do you go on a camping trip
well,
with
we were
somebody?
going to try the experience.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you go with somebody on a camping trip in May that you're told you don't want a relationship with several months before, and then tell me you went as friends?
The reason was I don't believe that that's usually a healthy thing, but I thought that she would be mature about it.
Being mature about what?
To be able to be a friend after you've been in a deep relationship with someone, and to handle it as friends.
So you decided to handle it as friends by going away on a camping trip together. Now, let me ask you about this camping trip. How many people went on the camping trip?
It was just the two of us.
And did you have one tent or two?
We had one tent.
And did you share that tent, or did you sleep on the sofa?
No, we shared the tent.
Were you intimate during the course of this camping trip?
No, ma'am. We were not.
Is that true?
That's correct. It's kind of hard to do anything in a tent.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So what happened during this trip in May?
Well, we talked about a lot of things. I told her she still had feelings for me and voiced that to me, and I told her that I didn't want to continue, that I wanted to start seeing other people, and I encouraged her to do the same.
How long was this camping trip?
It was just a weekend.
When did you have this conversation with her, on Friday or Sunday?
In regard to?
Not wanting to have a relationship with her anymore.
Well, it had been sort of ongoing. I can't recall it like a specific time.
Your Honor, we never talked about it. We went out and had a good time. The following weekend was Memorial Weekend. I spent the entire holiday weekend with them.
That sound right, sir?
I only recall the camping trip.
Well, let's try to recall the following weekend. She said she spent the entire weekend with you.
I know that what I do...
She's going to be able to prove everything that she says. I want you to trust me, so I want you to think hard. We're not talking about so long ago, sir. You went camping. She says the following weekend was Memorial Weekend, and you spent the entire weekend with him. Is that right? Where?
At his home.
At his home?
Yes.
Not in your home?
Friday through Monday.
You didn't have a tent there where it was difficult.
We slept in the same bed, Your Honor.
Think hard.
I am, Your Honor. I do not recall that. I'm being completely, brutally honest with you, Your Honor.
Well, if you don't recall it, she does.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay. So what happened at the end of that Memorial Day weekend, Ms. Gutierrez?
We just had a good weekend. We made a nice steak dinner that night. Always ate underneath his hut. He's got a beautiful yard.
Well, when did he tell you that it was over?
We never talked about it.
How did you find out it was over?
On June 2nd, he was supposed to go with me to a Japanese dinner with a friend of mine, and he backed out. After dinner, I went to the club looking for him.
What club?
It's the Texas Tux.
Is that where he works?
That's where he picks up his women.
Did you find him?
No, ma'am.
When did you speak to him, if at all, to him to tell you that it was over?
A week and a half after he met Annette on June 5th. He was seeing her, but I didn't know anything about it until a week and a half later.
Miss Hale, when did you meet Mr. Stevens?
June 12th.
6/12.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you meet him?
I met him at the Tux with some friends.
At the Texas Tux?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were immediately attracted to him?
We got along well. Great conversation. Over the next few weeks, we would meet for a drink or dinner or, and that was it.
Did he tell you that he had been in a long-term relationship?
Sure did.
What did he tell you about it?
He had been broke up with her since December 14th.
Okay, that's what he told you?
Mm-hmm.
That he had been out of the relationship for at least 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you now know that that's not true.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know that before today?
No, ma'am.
We're getting on with this because I want you to hear this, Miss Hale. Before you put all your eggs in his basket, I want you to understand what you're dealing with.
Okay.
Bad enough that one lady got snookered. You don't want that to happen twice.
And he will.
Shh.
Sorry.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. John Stevens and his girlfriend Annette Hale claim John's ex-girlfriend Janie Gutierrez has been spray painting obscenities on Annette's car.
Now, Mr. Stevens, Miss Hale tells me that you told her that you were in a long-term relationship which terminated in December.
That's when it formally terminated. That's when we had
That's not what you
argument.
told me 2 minutes ago, sir.
No, but I'm just saying, what happened, that was the formal end of the romantic relationship. I did have a continued relationship, but it was not a romantic one with Miss Gutierrez.
Well, maybe you weren't romantic, sir. Did you tell Miss Hale that you had been on a camping trip with her?
I told Miss Hale about a lot of...
Did you tell her you had been on a camping trip with her 2 weeks before?
I don't recall if I told her about the camping
Well,
trip.
let's see. Did he tell you about the camping trip?
Yes, ma'am, but I was not aware they were alone. I was aware that there were a lot of people.
Oh, well, tell me about what he told you about the camping trip.
I thought they had gone with friends on a camping trip, and that it was strictly friendly, and that was it. And she couldn't accept that, and so he told her they couldn't be friends. That's what I was told. Yes.
There isn't a question in my mind, Miss Hale, that on Memorial Day weekend, they spent the weekend together. Because she remembers it down to what they had for dinner, and he just doesn't remember. Exactly. Just doesn't remember that. Could have happened, but he doesn't remember it.
Right.
Okay. Now, Miss Hale, I'd like you to tell me what kind of vandalism you suffered and when.
Okay. The first one started on June 25th. I have police report.
Can I see it, please?
Pictures.
Was there a word written here? I can't tell what it says.
It starts, but it just never gets to that last letter.
Okay. Well, this happened June 25th. What proof do you have that Miss Gutierrez caused this damage to your car?
Well, I have 2 other police reports. The painting happened 2 other times to my car. I have pictures of it also. And the fact that on July 31st, we were trying to wait up and watch for her since it was becoming every week. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, the dog started going crazy, and she was out in the driveway with a can of spray paint.
But, Your Honor, she neglected to tell you that I got a prank joke from the police officer at 3:30 in the morning. They said that they had a witness for me spray painting the garage in her car, and they told me if I didn't come to the scene and bring my spray paint to the scene, if I had any spray paint, to bring it, otherwise they would arrest me. He made the prank call. So I came up there with the can of spray paint that was never used at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Did you call her?
No, ma'am.
That doesn't sound right to me, Miss Gutierrez.
It is, Judge Judy. They woke me up at 3:30 in the
Where did you
morning.
get a can of spray paint?
I bought 3 cans 6 years ago. It took 2 cans to spray one of my piece of furniture.
What color?
It was a burgundy.
Miss Gutierrez.
But the 3rd paint can I never used. I used both of them on the piece of furniture 6 years ago.
What color was the...
The 3rd time was burgundy.
Can I see it, please?
And the same night, 25 miles away, she painted his garage burgundy. And we have pictures.
Oh, yeah. Some pictures of my garage.
The gold paint was the 2nd time. That was the 3rd with the burgundy on his garage.
What date was this?
That one was July the 16th with the burgundy paint.
Now, Ms. Gutierrez, according to your answer, you say that it was impossible for you to have done this on the 16th of July because you had either just had surgery or you were recuperating from major surgery. What kind of surgery?
I broke my neck in January. I was paralyzed.
Until when?
I just got the machine off the back of my neck last week, and also my PICC line that I've had since January.
Well, that didn't prevent you from getting around in July. You were not bedridden in July.
I was on a machine, and I had home care come 3 times a week.
That doesn't make any sense.
I was restricted
You're not answering my question. Were you mobile during the month of July?
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, because at some point in July, you went over to the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, right?
When I got the phone call.
When you got the phone call, you were able to get up out of your house and go over to his house with a can of spray paint. So you were, in fact, mobile. So there was nothing physiologically wrong with you that precluded you from getting into a car and traveling, unless somebody drove you there. Did somebody drive you there?
No, ma'am.
You drove yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Gutierrez, I would have been very angry with him, too.
But not enough for me to spray paint, Your Honor. I'm not violent.
That's not being violent. Not violent. It's being vindictive. It's a criminal act. It's not per se a violent act. But I don't see why you would want to spray paint her car. She got snookered in by this guy.
I have nothing against her, Your Honor.
Of course not. You shouldn't. The only thing that you both suffer from is from terrible judgment. You understand that the lady standing next to you has certain questions to ask you about what kind of character you have after today.
Well, ma'am, I'm an Eagle Scout, and I've tried to be as forthright and honest with her about a lot of these issues.
He never was honest with me. I found that out just recently.
He's an Eagle Scout.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect.
They're going to take your badges away from you, Mr. Stevens. How much did it cost you to clean up your car?
Well, we kept using different methods to get the paint off, but I've got estimates. It's practically down to the metal because 3 times getting paint off, it takes it away. So I got two estimates, and an estimate from Hertz on renting a car while it's getting fixed.
Did you get the paint off your garage door, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I used some chemicals, but it's left it down to taking the top coating off.
So I think you ought to get a can of paint. And while you're painting, I think you should keep repeating to yourself, I cannot tell a lie, I will always tell the truth. I am an Eagle Scout. See what kind of trouble you cause when you're not honest with people?
Ma'am, I'll try to be honest throughout this ordeal.
No. Let me explain something to you, Mr. Stevens. If you told this lady back in January and February that you were no longer interested in a relationship with her, and she could not accept that, that would have been her problem. But if you were waffling around until you found something better and took her away on a camping trip, and then the following weekend either shared her bed or allowed her to share yours with a view towards perhaps I have nothing better to do this weekend, that means that what you are doing is you are playing fast and loose with somebody else's emotions. And that, sir, is very cruel. And then when you meet this lady, you give her a whole bunch of junk, painting a picture to her that is not accurate, because I'm sure that when she was suffering this damage to her car, you were telling her, I don't know what's wrong with her. I broke up with her in December. That's 7 months ago. She just can't accept it. She didn't know that you were leading her on over the course of the next 6 or 7 months, up until a couple of months before this happened. She didn't know that. That's not being honest, sir. And sometimes damage comes from not being honest. So I suggest you go out there and get yourself a can of paint, put on some jeans, and paint your garage doors. You get $1,400 to paint your car. Judgment for the plaintiff, and your counterclaim is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. Let's step out.
Obviously, there was a relationship that broke apart and someone couldn't let go.
It destroyed me because my plans were to marry him.
I don't think I got the whole truth from either one of them.
Sort of painted me today like I was very untruthful and not upfront and honest.
He lied not only to me, but his new girlfriend.
I feel like I'm a victim in this.
My advice to her is she needs to check out someone's history thoroughly before jumping in bed with them.
I shouldn't have to live in fear where someone's going to come by, destroy my property, and come over at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hope this is the end of it.
Construction worker David Falk is suing the mother of his child, homemaker Tammy Williams, and her husband Steve for attorney fees due to a restraining order. The Williams are countersuing, claiming David filed false charges with Child Protective Services.
Now, this is case number 219 on the calendar in the matter of Falk versus Williams.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Price has been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Falk, you and Mrs. Williams had a relationship for a brief period of time, I understand from your papers, while her husband was incarcerated.
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of that relationship, you have a child, a son.
Yes, ma'am.
Her husband was released from prison, and it is your claim that after you made attempts to see your son, they filed false charges of stalking and harassment against you. You want the costs that you incurred as a result of those proceedings. Mr. and Mrs. Williams say that everything that they said in those petitions were true, that you were annoying, harassing, stalking them, that the reason the case was dismissed was because for some legitimate reason they couldn't make it to the hearing, but everything that they said was true. And they are counterclaiming because they say that you called Child Protective Services and made allegations against them as parents of your son.
Yes.
Okay. When did you go to jail, Mr. Williams?
April of 2002.
And how long had you and Mrs. Williams been married up until that point?
We've been married since 1997.
You have children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
3 children together.
When did you start to see Mr. Falk?
Approximately about 2 years ago.
Give me the month and year. Don't ask him. He was in jail.
I was in jail.
Do you know Mr. Falk?
I think it was around September, somewhere in there.
September of 2002?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When was your son born, Mr. Falk?
October 9th, 2003.
Now, when were you released from jail, Mr. Williams?
June the 1st of this year, 2004.
Did you know about this new baby that came into the family?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you find out about this new baby?
I actually found out while she was pregnant. She did write me and tell me about the relationship between her and Mr. Falk. That is when we started reconciling. We had been separated for a little while I was in prison.
You mean you were separated before you went to prison?
No. When I went to prison, she split up with me because I went back to prison because she told me if I went to prison, she couldn't handle the situation.
How many times have you been to prison, sir?
I've been to prison twice. This was a probation violation, what I went back for.
What were you violated for?
Not paying monies, and I couldn't pay the restitutions on the case.
Not paying restitution? You were violated for not making restitution in what kind of case, sir?
Obtaining property by false pretense, checks, worthless and bad checks.
So how many times were you arrested for writing bad checks?
Several times. I went through a period, I wrote the checks over a period of time.
Over a period of what time?
1998, 1997.
2 years?
Yes, ma'am.
So this wasn't a one-shot deal where you wrote a couple of bad checks and you were arrested?
They were wrote over a few months period, but over 2 years I kept, as they come in and
so
would go
they
to
were
court.
written over a period of time?
Yes, ma'am.
And you cashed them over a period of time?
Yes, ma'am.
As I said, this was not a one-shot deal?
No, ma'am.
All right.
You're correct.
So that's what your wife... You always get there.
Yeah.
So that's what your wife is saying. She said to you, if you get arrested again, we're finished.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds right to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, after your husband was released from jail, you decided to reconcile. Is that right, Miss Williams?
Yes.
That was in June, so that your baby was 8 months old.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do?
I accepted my husband for him to come into the home. We worked it out, and everything.
And what did you do about Mr. Falk and his wanting to see his son?
Mr. Falk has never called. He's only made harassing phone calls or drive by the house.
When did he ask to see his son?
He never has, Your Honor.
Was he present when the child was born?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there we go. That's a one thing. So when the child was born, he was there.
Yes, Your Honor.
And where did you go after you left the hospital when the child was born?
I think I went to his house.
So you lived with him for a period of time with the child?
He lived with me in my house. We just...
Fine. He lived with you for a period of time after the child was born?
After the child was born, I don't think he was.
Did you ever spend the night with her after your son was born?
Yeah, I did, because we went down to my mother's house for Thanksgiving and spent the night down there. So we did.
That was in November of 2003, when the baby was just about a month old.
Yes,
you remember that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So I would assume that for a period of time before your husband got out of jail, there was regular communication between the two of you. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
There we go. That's what I'm trying to get at. Before your husband got out of jail, there was regular communication with Mr. Falk. He was there when the baby was born, took you home from the hospital. You went to visit his mother Thanksgiving time. You went with the baby. Did you take your other children with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, so what happened? Why did you stop allowing him regular contact with his son?
I felt that it was nice for him to see his son, just being a nice mother.
Why did you stop him from seeing his son?
I don't know.
Well, did that coincide with the time when your husband was released from prison?
It wasn't around that time. He was still in prison.
Why did you stop him from seeing his son?
Because I had got this ex parte violence protective order.
Let me see it. That doesn't answer my question, Miss Williams. There was a period of time when everything was okay and he was seeing his son and you were visiting his mother and you were traveling as a family practically. Now, something happened when you decided not to let him see his son.
Because he was calling me, making threatening calls.
Something happened before that. You're down visiting his mother in November for Thanksgiving. Christmas. What happened?
I just wanted to end the relationship.
That's right. You wanted to end the relationship. And did you tell him that?
Not in so many words, Your Honor.
What words did you use, Mrs. Williams?
I was mostly avoiding him.
Right. And when you were mostly avoiding him, that means he couldn't see his son. Right? Because you had the child in your custody.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you getting where I'm going?
Yes, Your Honor.
She wanted to end the relationship. She didn't tell him she wanted to end the relationship. She just started to avoid him.
She's leaving half the stuff out. She's
Listen
so
to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been around longer than you've been born. We understand each other.
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
not a new story, just new faces on the story.
Yes, ma'am.
She wanted to end it because you and she, according to you, were coming together.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote you about the baby. You decided to reconcile. She had to break it off. She didn't want to make any trouble by telling him she wanted to break it off, so she just didn't take his phone calls, which means he couldn't see his child. So he started calling her on the telephone. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out, Mr. Williams. That's what happened. So then she goes and files this protective order, and she says, he's harassing me. He's driving by my house. He's leaving threatening messages. Well, what did you expect him to do if you wouldn't let him see his child? Did you expect him to go away?
No, Your Honor.
Well, what did you expect him to do? Now, when your husband got out of prison, your husband put his name on the baby's birth certificate. Is that right, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
And you did that knowing that you were not this child's father, and you did that for the explicit purpose of seeing to it that Mr. Falk did not see his son and was not... Oh. Well, what other reason could there have been... What other reason could there have been, Mr. Williams, for you, knowing that you were not the child's father, to put your name on the child's birth certificate instead of the child's father's name?
He never accepted from day one while he was at the hospital to be allowed on the birth certificate. He refused to be put on the birth certificate.
I want to explain something to you, Mr. Williams. That is a lie. No. Because as long as she's married to somebody else, he is not permitted by law to put his name on the birth certificate unless he is adjudicated by a court as the father of the child. I'm 10 steps ahead of you, sir.
Okay.
He took the child home from the hospital. He was there when the child was born. A month later, he went to visit his mother with your wife and your 3 children for Thanksgiving. A month after that, he went to his mother's home for Christmas with your 3 children and the child. And then your wife decides to go back with you. She avoids his telephone calls. He gets miserable and frustrated. You get out of prison, you say, we're going to resolve this once and for all. I'm going to put my name on the child's birth certificate. That's going to cut him off. Well, it didn't cut him off.
May I respond to that, please?
Yeah, you sure may.
He is trying to disrupt us and split us up because he wants Tammy back. I don't have any problem
He doesn't
with
want her
being
back.
father.
Trust me. He doesn't want her back. His mother doesn't want her back. Your wife fooled around while you were in jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I make a comment on that, please?
Sure.
I was in church. I was vulnerably hurt. He took advantage of that situation.
Madam, you were married and had 3 children. Nobody took advantage of you. Nobody forced you. Nobody tied you to a bed. You got it? Take responsibility for your own actions. You have to behave in an orderly fashion, which is, if you have a relationship with somebody and you make a baby with them, you don't decide like this, that I'm going to cut him off, which is what you did, without an explanation, without a sit-down, without a discussion. Say, listen, we have to end this relationship because I'm going to go back to my husband. That doesn't mean that I'm going to take the baby away from you. Let's go to court. You'll be declared the father of the baby. We'll set up a visitation schedule. You'll be able to visit with him when you like. Instead, you decide just not to answer your phone. That's what you told me. And then when he gets annoyed and starts making harassing phone calls, you go to court and you get an ex parte protective order against him. And then when it's set for trial, you don't show up. And it's dismissed. Those are the costs he wants.
Excuse me.
She didn't show up. Now, you say she had a really good reason for not showing up. Show me a doctor's record that she was in a hospital.
Actually, we were in Superior Court in another county.
For what?
A 4-year-old check that they're trying to bring up now that I've paid off.
That didn't stop her from going to court, sir.
She was the witness in my case.
Did you notify the court?
Yes, we did.
Show me where you notified the court before.
I didn't know I needed it today.
Well, where'd you think you were coming to, a tea dance?
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today, David Falk says the mother of his child, Tammy Williams, falsely accused him of stalking and harassment. David also claims Tammy and her husband won't let him see his son.
What were your costs with regard to defending this action for a protective order?
$3,800. I had to hire a lawyer.
Let me see the lawyer's bill. Did you pay this bill?
I paid $1,800 so far.
Mr. Falk, what arrangements are you trying to make legally to get to visit with this child?
Try to get complete custody of him. I've got that filed now.
Did they order blood tests?
We're in the process of getting that done now, too. It's got to be a court order because she refuses to give DNA.
No.
No what?
We were actually told by our attorneys that he was wanting to drop this now because I'm willing to take responsibility for the child and be the child's father.
That right, sir?
I don't know. It's still
That come from his attorney.
August the 22nd.
So what you're telling me now, Mrs. Williams, listen to me very carefully, is if the court wants you to go for a blood test, you are consenting to go for a DNA test with this baby?
Yes, ma'am.
Fine. Do you understand? Now, as part of this proceeding, there is a counterclaim. The counterclaim suggests, Mr. Falk, that you called Child Protective Services on them. Show me.
We did have the letter, and we cannot find that cleared her.
I just want, listen to me. I just want proof that he called Child Protective Services and it was false.
That's the one thing we did not have. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Williams, I can't help you, sir.
I know.
Okay. You owe him $3,500, which is what he paid for his lawyer for this bogus case that you filed against him, Miss Williams. Listen to me very carefully. You made a mistake. You had an affair while your husband was away. He's the father of this child, according to you. He wants to see this child. He wants to be part of this child's life. Now, that may be inconvenient for you because you are now reconciled with your husband. That doesn't mean you can cut him off. If he chooses not to be a good father, if he chooses not to support the child once he has an order of visitation, and if he chooses to abandon this child, then you can cut him off. But you can't decide to do that on your own. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He's made frivolous things that I am abusive to my wife and children.
She had told everybody at church her husband was abusive towards her and the kids.
He shot his ex-wife.
She was the one chasing after me.
Because he's beat her, she's scared to say anything.
She told me she wasn't going to go back to her husband, and, you know, he was so mean.
I can't take my children to shopping in the same county we live in.
The Lord will take care of it, and he did. The Lord brought it out right here.
Next case.
All parties in the matter of Hart versus Armstrong. Step forward, please.
24-year-old receptionist Valeska Hart is suing her former neighbor, 24-year-old production assistant Brian Armstrong, for the cost to repair her vacuum cleaner. Brian says he borrowed the vacuum to clean his apartment after it was egged.
Is that the offending vacuum cleaner?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong, you are Miss Harp's neighbor, or were Miss Harp's neighbor. And according to what I read, somebody or some group of people decided, I haven't said anything yet. Why do you have this silly look on your face?
Just listening.
Good. Listen intently.
I am.
Somebody egged your apartment.
Yeah.
You made a big mess all over the place, and you went next door and asked Miss Harp if you could borrow her vacuum cleaner. Miss Harp says that when you returned the vacuum cleaner to her after having tried to vacuum up all this wet slop that was all over your carpet, that the vacuum cleaner didn't work anymore and it was ruined. And Mr. Armstrong, you say that it seemed to work just fine when you brought it home.
Yeah.
Does it work anymore?
Now it does because I had it fixed.
Do you have a bill?
Yes, I do.
When was your apartment egged, Mr. Armstrong?
About last weekend in April.
By whom?
I have no idea.
Did you make a police report?
No, it was reported to the management downstairs, but I don't think any police.
Not them, you. Why didn't you report it to the police?
That somebody egged my house?
That someone vandalized your home.
It was all cleaned up by the apartment building. It wasn't a big deal.
They cleaned up your apartment?
Yeah. They repainted the whole out front. Outside, they cleaned it.
Who cleaned the inside of your apartment?
That was me.
Why did you use that vacuum cleaner to clean up all the wet stuff in your apartment?
I didn't clean up any wet stuff. What happened was my sliding door was open, so some of the eggs, 2 or 3, had gotten inside. And a couple days later, when I'm cleaning it up, was like dry yolk and stuff on the carpet. I resolved it out, scrubbed it out, and then there were still some eggshells on the ground, stuff like that. But it wasn't sloppy wet like you were describing.
I didn't describe it. She described it in her complaint.
Okay.
Tell me what happened when he returned the vacuum cleaner.
When the vacuum was returned to me, the outside bag, not the inside bag that you changed, but the outside bag was completely soaking wet. You could have wrung it, and you lifted it up, and there was gooey stuff coming out of it. On the metal part, there was eggshells.
When he returned it to you, did you say anything to him about the condition?
Yes, I did.
What did you say to him?
I said, this is leaking, because he put it back into the closet where it was, and it wasn't a carpeted area, and I was cleaning up the area, and I said, I'm going to have to take this in to get it fixed and to get it cleaned, and you're going to have to pay for it.
And he said?
How much do you think that will cost? And I said, I'm not sure. And
it's impossible for her to say that there was leaking stuff coming out of the bottom because I didn't vacuum up any.
Did you use the words to her, Mr. Armstrong, how much do you think that will cost? Almost not an answer. Why don't you have a vacuum of your own?
I don't know.
You have an apartment that has carpeting?
I do.
So how do you clean the carpeting? With the tweezers?
Sometimes.
I don't find you adorable. How do you clean your carpeting?
I don't.
How long have you lived there?
Maybe 6 months now.
And you don't clean the carpeting?
I did when she lived there.
When who lived there?
Val lived across the way.
So you borrowed her vacuum cleaner frequently?
Maybe once previous to the incident.
So in the 6 months that you lived there, you vacuumed your carpet twice? Is that right?
Maybe 3 times, yeah.
Whose vacuum did you borrow the third time? You're making it up as you're going along, sir.
I mean, I don't know how many times I vacuumed my carpet, to be honest with you.
How many times had he borrowed your vacuum?
I don't have
once prior to the incident.
How many times a day do you shower?
Once.
Laundry?
Every month, maybe.
Yeah, do you turn your underwear?
Sometimes.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $200.29. Thank you.
Butterfly Steve, you may step out.
After I got it fixed, I said, you owe me $200.28.
I didn't break the vacuum. When I returned it, it was still working.
He got drunk one night and had nothing to do afterwards, so he was egging people off of his balcony.
That's true.
23-year-old warehouse worker Monique Goodwin is suing her former landlord, apartment manager Linda Kyle, for medical bills, a security deposit, and pain and suffering. Monique says, due to Linda's negligence, she almost died.
Yeah, this is case number 489 on the calendar in the matter of Goodman versus Kyle. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Goodwin, Miss Kyle was the resident manager in the apartment complex where you used to live.
Correct.
And you're suing her for thousands of dollars because you say she ignored a medical condition that you had, placing your life at risk, both yours and your daughter's.
Correct.
And you want your pain and suffering that she caused you, some medical bills. In addition, you want a security deposit of $1,000 that she hadn't returned to you.
Correct.
And Miss Kyle says she owes you absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, you lived there the last month without paying rent, and that's what your security deposit went for. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now let's get to the medical condition first, because I find that quite interesting. I gather there is a gate.
Correct.
In your former complex where you lived, and that when you moved in, you were told that in order to get in and out of the gate, you needed a clicker, like a remote. And it was $25.
Yeah, but at the time, I did not own a...
Don't get ahead of me, please. Okay. I'll let you fill in the blanks. Okay. I'm sort of setting this out so that Bert doesn't get bored.
Okay.
So you opted not to get a clicker because you didn't have a car.
No, I had a remote control, but it wasn't one that I purchased from her. At the time, I did not own a car, so there was no reason for me to have a remote control to the gate. But the only reason why I got
it... Oh, listen to me. You didn't buy a remote control from her for $25.
Correct.
When did you move in?
I moved in April.
April of what
2004.
Year? All right. And you lived there with your daughter?
My daughter and my son.
Then in October of 2004, your daughter had a seizure.
Correct.
And paramedics came and fire department and everybody else, and they can get in to the complex, But because you didn't have a clicker, they couldn't get out. At least the ambulance couldn't get out. Is that right?
Correct.
So you were angry because your daughter was stuck in the ambulance or whatever, and you went to her the next day, I assume, and
Yes,
said
I was
what? And said what?
I was very upset. I approached Miss Linda Kyle and informed her that around 4 o'clock that morning the paramedics came and picked up my daughter because she had a seizure, and the fire truck came and opened up the gate. After the fire truck left, then the paramedics were there. When the paramedics got ready to leave out of the gate, there was no way for them to, when they went around the apartments,
Listen
apartments
to
is
me,
only
Ms.
one.
Goodwin, we're not creating a novel here. This is a novella, small. The ambulance couldn't get out.
No, they couldn't.
So you went and complained the next day?
Yes, I did.
And what did Miss Kyle say to you?
She did nothing.
Your daughter suffers from seizures?
That was the first seizure that I've ever had my daughter have.
Well, after you had that first experience, you know what I would have done?
No.
I would have bought a clicker.
Okay.
You chose not to do that. And then a month later, you had an asthma attack.
Correct.
And you still didn't have a clicker.
Exactly, but that has nothing to do with the paramedics. The paramedics should be able to get out of that gate at all times. The only one that has a code is the fire truck. Once the fire truck leaves, there's nothing that the paramedics can do. The night that I had that asthma attack, there was no way for them. They saved my life. I was hospitalized for 3 days because of that. And the first time, she did nothing.
What I don't understand is why you didn't buy a clicker.
Why I didn't? Because I didn't have a car. There was no need for me. After someone stole it inside the apartment.
Listen to me. There was a need because a month before your daughter had a serious incident, according to you. And had you had a clicker at that point, you would have gone out in the ambulance with your daughter, gone like this, and the gate would have gone up.
Well, at the time, when a 2-year-old is sitting there having a seizure, that remote control does not mean anything to me. That is my 2-year-old daughter. That's the only daughter that I have. That remote control.
I want to tell you something. You're not making sense to me.
You're
not making sense to me.
The remote control, okay, the remote control is a big thing to me, okay? It is. But when it comes to the fire truck and the paramedics, that has nothing to do with me having a remote control to the gate. That has nothing to do with it at all, period. I could have lost my life in that paramedics. That's why I'm so upset.
Listen to me, madam. What I don't understand is your daughter had a seizure in October. The paramedics had a problem getting out of your gate. Now you know that your daughter is subject to seizures. I would have said to myself, I have a 2-year-old child. I'm not going to be put in a situation where this can ever happen to me again. Here's $25. Give me a clicker. I'm going to keep it in my house in case I ever have that kind of problem again. That's the way you protect your child. Why would you blame that on somebody else?
Well, it's a lot when it comes to Miss Linda.
We're not talking about Miss Linda. I'm talking about you being a responsible parent.
Yes.
You now have a child that you know is subject to
kids.
seizures, who may in the future have that kind of an emergency. And just as you would go and get the medicine for your child that the doctor gave you, you would want to ensure that if an ambulance had to be called again, you would be able to get the ambulance in and out. I mean, if you disapprove of the way this apartment complex is run, you have a choice. You can move.
Correct.
That's your choice. But to stay there after your 2-year-old has had a seizure without the ability to get her out in case of an emergency is very, very irresponsible.
Well, I thought she was going to fix the problem after I approached her with it.
What made you think that?
Because she's the manager of the apartments. And
no, what did she say to you that led you to believe that she was going to fix it?
She told me they had a code to the gate. They don't have a code to that gate because we sat out there for 30 minutes. When I had my asthma attack, they went knocking on people's door at 4 o'clock in the morning to get me out.
Just a second. Let me ask you a question. They were knocking on people's doors, the paramedics?
Correct.
What did they want when they were knocking on people's doors?
They wanted to get out of the gate.
They wanted a
remote control to get out of the gate.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Quinn says she nearly died from an asthma attack because paramedics couldn't open the security gate to her apartment. Manager Linda Kyle says Monique never purchased a remote control.
Now, after your incident in November, at some point you were served with an eviction notice. You want to tell me why you served her with an eviction notice?
The eviction notice that Ms. Goodwin was served with had nothing to do with the gate. It was due to a nuisance matter where her and her sister was fighting all outside.
You have a complaint?
Yes, I do.
May I see it, please? Who witnessed this?
Actually, it was 3 or 4 apartments in the complex that called and reported that there was a big scene.
Did you have surround sound in your apartment?
No, I do not own surround sound.
Your Honor, she told me she owned surround sound.
When did she tell you that?
When I asked her to turn her music down.
What did she say?
She said that she didn't feel that she should have to get rid of her surround sound, that she had a right, as long as she paid her rent and her apartment, to play her music whenever she felt like it.
Which is a lie.
Okay, so you were served with this 3-day notice to quit on December the 1st.
No, I wasn't.
When were you served?
I was given this notice to quit on December the 3rd. I tried to give her my rent on the 1st of December. She looked at me with a big smile on her face while me and my mom was in her office and told me that she was not going to accept my rent.
Okay. So she said, I'm not going to accept your rent on December 1st. You were given a notice to vacate the apartment. When did you, in fact, leave the apartment?
We went to court on January the 5th. I didn't leave until January the 22nd.
What was your rent?
My rent was $625.
Did you pay rent for December?
I tried. I have.
Don't tell me you tried.
No, I...
Did you pay rent for December? Did you live there in December?
Yes, I did.
Did you pay rent in January?
No, I did not, because she
Did you live there in January?
Yes, I did. I tried to give her my rent. She did not want it.
No, she wanted you out. The only issue is whether, when you moved out, you owed any money. You lived there for 2 months. You didn't pay rent for 2 months. I'm not here to determine whether or not the underlying case of the eviction was right or wrong. That's been resolved by the housing court. I'm here because you want your security deposit back, and what I'm saying to you is you expected to live there for December and January and not have, I'm speaking, and not pay rent?
I'm gonna get mad.
Are you living someplace now that you like?
Yes, me and my kids are very happy.
Good, that's what I think should happen. I think that you and your children should find a place to live where you're very happy. Does it have a gate?
Yes, it does. And as a matter of fact, the people can get in and out of the gate.
Perfect. Then you're in a place where you're happy.
But the problem...
Listen to me. You're at a place where you're happy. All right. Now, you were given an opportunity to get a remote control for the gate. You chose not to get one. Even after your daughter had a seizure, you chose not to get one.
What does that have to do with the paramedics? I don't understand that.
Miss Goodwin, listen, there are no free rides.
Yeah, but this is the receipt that I tried to give her my rent money. But she would not take it from me.
You just paid it with your security deposit, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Me and my daughter could have lost our lives while we were in that paramedics.
Well, I think Judge Judy got a chance to see through Miss Monique.
This lady is a very good liar, and she lies all the time.
She's young. This is her first apartment.
She's just and I hate her, and I'm going to keep hating her.
She's a little hard-headed. You can't make her understand.